Hey guys, and welcome to my channel and to this video. Today we will be painting a lighthouse in the starry night. I did draw my sketch on just a regular printing paper and then trace it onto my watercolor paper. Sketch is available for download for you, so you can find the link down in the description box, and if you want you can just download it for yourself, trace it and just join. First, I started with pre-wetting the entire paper, and you can see this time I did not put the tape, washi tape, around the borders because I decided to paint my borders black, and it just doesn't matter if I go over them. If you want to stretch your paper, you can put it onto a board and then glue it. Later on, just remove the glue and add the black border. I started with this yellow. This is a very, very bright yellow from Altenew color palette, and I painted just around the lighthouse where the light is going to be. And then with this blue called Cool Summer Night, I am painting in around that yellow and also over to the edges of my paper, and I'm just adding a couple of layers using the same color. Later on I will add a little bit of the black. This one is called Rock Collection. This black I'm going to use and just paint in a lot of layers, adding color because I do want to make it quite dark but not too dark. So I am adding layers. Of course you can do that in 1 or 2 layers. You don't have to layer and add colors if that's not what you like, but just make sure you use a lot of pigment. Then I left it to dry completely, and then with this masking marker I'm just masking the part where the light should be the brightest, and now I will paint around it because I do want to preserve that brighter light. So if you don't have a masking marker, that's just fine. You don't have to use it. You can just cut maybe in a shape of a circle, half circle, a masking tape, and then just glue it onto your paper. And that's how you can mask that part from just adding a lot of colors, and you don't have to be very careful around it not to paint it. Now again, pre-wetted the paper and adding again same colors. This is the same Cool Summer Night. I did add a little bit of the Starry Night in it and this Rock Collection black, and just painting again around that yellow. You can see I'm just leaving the part just nearest to the lighthouse, the brightest and the lightest. Again, it's dried completely and I'm adding more layers. So this is going to be all about layering because I usually don't like to add a lot of layers. I try to make it in less layers as possible, but this time, and these colors, they are quite pigmented, but darker colors, there's always a problem with dark watercolors. They're not so, I guess, opaque. Watercolors are transparent, so if you want to make it opaque, you have to use a lot of layers. And if you want to skip that, if you want to avoid that, you can use maybe a gouache, the blue gouache or black gouache, to paint in the sky and that darkest part. And that is also how you can avoid not painting a lot of layers if that's not what you like. But with those layers comes different textures, and I do love how layers look and the effect they create. So now I've picked up a little bit of white gouache and I'm just tapping in with the tip of my brush onto wet paper. This paper is wet. You could have seen I've added more pigment on top, so the paper is still wet, and I'm just tapping in that white gouache, which is spreading and bleeding onto my paper. And I do want to create some highlights and brighter spot to make it look like there is some Milky Way or some stars or some galaxy over there in the sky. And right now I'm just adding those rays around my lighthouse. How it's just when the light is spreading, it just leaves those beautiful rays. So I'm just adding couple of rays with the blue, and that's something that you do have sketched on your sketch. So just make sure you make them dark enough to see them later on when we start to paint these rays. and the paper around them is wet. And if it's not wet, you know, mine, you can see at the edges it started to dry. If that happens to you, my advice to you is not to go any further, but just stop, dry it completely, wet the paper again, and then on top add those rays. They shouldn't, those lines shouldn't be sharp, they should be bleeding. So it's fine if your paper is better if your paper is wet. Again, adding more layers on top. I do want it to make it even darker. When it dries, watercolors dry lighter, so this will be a lot lighter when it dries. Especially the colors that are darker, they look even lighter when they dry. And now this is again dry. And I'm gonna paint the lighthouse now. I have mixed in the colors I have used for the sky. So there is a little bit of rock collection, a little bit of cool summer night. And on top of those, I've added this red called Tea Party. It's just some basic red, some primary red color to get in this, I guess, violet, not really violet, but this purple color to paint in the shadows and the lighthouse. So added a little bit more of the blue in it and painting in the left side where I do want my shadows on the lighthouse. This is just a little bit more of the black. And I did go a little bit over the border edge of my lighthouse, so I have picked it up with a dry towel. And now just adding a little bit more of the black and painting in the lower part, again that front of the lighthouse, and there are some trees, some grasses, bushes. We are looking at a lighthouse from the ground, so we do see some grasses and I guess some, well, trees, bushes, whatever that is on the ground. A little bit more of the black. This is some tree in the background. And again, I'm adding a little bit more of the details, a little bit more of the black to the lighthouse. Just make sure you make the distinction between that upper part of the lighthouse and the lower part. We will be adding later on more details and more shadows to it. Just gonna block in the colors and just leave a little bit of the lighter part in between those lines. You will see that again also on your sketch. Some splatters with white gouache for the stars, and I've got this is a very stiff brush. I do like it for smaller stars and when I do want to, well, splatter a bunch of stars. A little bit more of the black. I have splattered some white on top, but that's fine because I did want to add more layers of that black. And now this started to dry, so I'm adding one more coat of black. You can see that line I was talking about right now, that it's lighter in between those two darker parts. I left that to dry completely, and right now with this very hard eraser, I'm just removing my masking tape, and with ink pen, this one is from Etchr set of graphic pens. I believe this is number 01. I'm just doing some railing on my lighthouse and some details. Well, it's a lot easier to do them with ink pen than with a brush, but if you don't have an ink pen, you can definitely use a brush and black watercolor. But just make sure it's a very, very tiny brush because this is quite detailed. And also I decided to do a little bit more of the shading on the lighthouse and that lower part of that top. And a little bit more of the details. This is some maybe rope or something like that, wire on the side, and a little bit more of the black for the shadows to create the impression that this part just stands out from the column of the lighthouse. Some more of the details, some more of grasses, just adding a little bit more of the paint to the rays. and when I'm happy with that, I just put that masking tape. This is a very bad masking tape. I think I've used it before, but I just forgot. I haven't used it a long time. It's just really bad. Everything goes around, beneath it, so you will see when I remove it how it just, my paint went beneath that tape. So I picked up some clean water in my brush and just smudging that, picking up the border. I don't want the border with my towel, and again on the sides I was smarter. I took another tape, and again, wow, I do have again some paint going under it, but it doesn't matter. I decided to go with it and just make that border a little bit messy, and well, you know, it just looks like, well, I guess something I wanted to do. And with that, we'll be finishing off this painting and this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It is quite simple and fun to do. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button, share it, and comment. If you haven't still, please do subscribe to my channel. That would be awesome. And maybe consider joining my channel. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!